3, 2, 1, go.
Welcome back to another episode of Imagine More. We have our great guest today, AJ, and we got
Welcome
Seth
back
back.
again.
Yeah, we got Seth back once again, guys.
Once
We've
more.
returned once more. Yes, uh, we have a great quick show, which is um, very rare because we normally go about an hour. But we decided there was so much pressing news that we had to get something out to you guys, and so we wanted to do a quick show, let you guys know where we're at, where we stand right now, and the political spectrum and our thoughts about what's going on. Because I mean, there's been some crazy things from Trump being almost assassinated to our president dropping out and now a VP pick. That's how crazy the last 3 or 4 weeks has been. And so we're definitely gonna get some rapid fire and then probably go more in depth later on this week on another show. But I'm not gonna take up any more time. We're gonna let people introduce themselves. So what's going on, Seth?
A lot has been going on. We missed a lot in the last couple of weeks. The last episode that we had was whether or not Joe Biden would drop out. And, next thing you know, the very next day he dropped out, I think. So that's
Yeah,
a
right.
that's a big development, we'll say.
I'm not gonna lie to you, Seth. You have been lately. I don't know what it is, but you've been very clairvoyant, and
Oh,
a lot of things you've been
at
calling.
first I thought you said flamboyant, but no, you said
No,
clairvoyant. I'm like, what?
no. You've been predicting a lot of things correctly. So we'll touch more about that later. But hey, AJ, what's going on, man?
All right, thanks for having me, you guys. I'm AJ. I've been on before. Last time it was a while ago, and it was back when I was still in like the minor party scene and doing that. So
Yeah.
today I am here because I have become a massive Kamala Harris fanboy in the past few weeks, and I just wanted to talk about it. So Seth was like, "Hey, you want to come on and talk about Kamala Harris? Have a platform again to share your love of K Hive 2.0?" And I was like, you know what?
Fine.
Sure, I'm down for it.
Yeah.
Before we get to that, though, how insane is it that we had a presidential assassination attempt a few weeks ago, and it's it's like not even important anymore. Like it's barely had an effect on the presidential election. That's insane.
Yeah,
I
that's
actually think that people undersell the effect it actually did have. That's what's funny.
How so?
Because no, it did not affect his polling for very long. There was a little initial burst of popularity, and people were all remember we were all like, "All right, we are cooked." We all felt that it wasn't. It wasn't just the conservatives. It wasn't just the liberals. We all felt the same way about Joe Biden after that. We're like, I don't see a possible avenue for him to win at all. I think that's really when the pressure campaign started. I mean, like we like from the official, Nancy Pelosi, Obama pressure campaigns. Like we all saw it at the debate. We all know what we saw. But ever since I feel like that's when it really started. Was with the presidential assassination attempt.
Yeah,
But like it didn't end up helping him. So
that's fair, but I remember that Saturday, like when it was going down, I was like, my girlfriend was with me at the time. We were on the couch back here and we were watching the news and we were like, oh my God, there's no way Biden's going to win now. This is insane. He's going to get like a huge bump at the polls, So I remember that feeling, but it's possible that it could have affected the pressure campaign, especially behind the scenes. There are a lot of things we don't know.
yeah.
But I do think there's a whole different element of this, which is something that we could see and that we could know if it was happening, and that's that the right and Trump's base did not properly capitalize on the fact that he was almost assassinated, at all. Like every once in a while, you'll see someone on Twitter basically whining about the fact that it isn't bigger news, but it was a presidential assassination attempt. Like that, it should be bigger than that, especially for his base.
Yeah.
And that's one of the metrics I'm kind of using to assess, wow, no one cared about this. And that might just be because Republicans don't actually like Donald Trump. But
No, I think it's because there wasn't any real motive at this point why it happened. It wasn't for a political reason. I don't think it was a political assassination. It was just one for fame.
I mean, does that really matter though? I mean, it was
Well,
some like a president still almost died. Like it was inches from his face. Like I think that could like this should be a big deal, and it's just like we just had to move on because there's so much other stuff going
Well,
on.
it's just such a standard thing the way it went about. It wasn't like a sign of future uprisings or of a political dissidents trying to assassinate Trump or anything. This is just like a regular school shooter like kind of thing where, public suicide, sure, but he really just wanted to make his name well known and, echoed throughout history or whatever. He was a Republican. He was sharing conservative stuff on, with his friends. Everything indicates that he was conservative. So this wasn't about like any sort of political motivation from any sort of indication we have. So that's why it just seems like they're like, well, there's nothing to really report on. Like there's some kid, he was deranged, and there was, an attempted shooting. So,
Well, sure, but
yeah,
we live in a world where like people assign political motives to like random acts of violence that they didn't have. Like that happens all the time with like school shooters these days. There's always some angle. The libs of TikTok is always claiming that they're trans for some reason. Like I feel like in the climate that we currently have, even then, even though it wasn't politically motivated, it was just some guy. I'm still really like, I'm still a little blown away by the fact that it didn't have as much of an impact as it did.
Of course, yeah, no, and it's not like it didn't have an impact, because everybody on the planet was talking about it. Like it's not like it went unnoticed. It's just how quickly we were willing to like let it go.
Mm-hmm.
That's what's really interesting because, like I said, everybody can like remember where they were when they heard it and that kind of stuff. That's the kind of thing that people don't.
I was at the gym.
Yeah,
I was literally at the gym looking, and I was like, "Oh, it looks like something happened," because there's no sound, right? So I didn't hear anything, but I could see, and it seemed like he was fine. He got up, he was surrounded by security service, and he walked away. I mean, but I think you both were right. I mean, as for someone being, a president being assassinated, this had the least amount of coverage that I've ever seen.
And like again, there are all sorts of factors here, like the fact that we just have had news after that to cover. But I think that's sort of like that's the reason why it still doesn't make it any less wacky to me.
True.
Yeah, it's and I don't know. I mean, he's very unpopular, so I don't know if that played a factor in it. I mean, it's not like he's a very popular president. Unlike Reagan, when he was shot, he was popular at that time.
True.
And, so that does play a factor. I mean, so I don't know, but you're right. He probably needs better publicists and PR people to figure out.
I think we've known that for a while, though.
Yeah.
All the good ones.
Yeah, it's terrible at that. But yeah, so that happened. But that even though that was shocking, he was assassinated. What's even more shocking was the fact that Biden still was going down the polls at that particular time.
Just for a second, though.
Well, his poll numbers were looking bad, not nationally, but in the swing states, they were all looking pretty bad. And so, and he just could not get over that debate fumble. He just couldn't. Which kind of was like shocking that this is one of the clairvoyant things I was saying with Seth. Seth called it. He said, I think by this weekend, maybe around a Sunday, that he's probably going to drop out. And literally that Sunday, we get the news that he's dropping out.
I got that sixth sense, I guess. I also like how we were talking about Tim Walz in the vice presidential episode before there was ever a short list too.
Yep, that was another clairvoyant thing we're going to talk about later. But yeah, so
I spoiled it. My bad.
He did, but Seth, he called it, and President Biden did resign. Which I mean, we've always said he needed to resign. He was not going to win.
Yeah.
Um, and I like the way he swiftly came out and supported Kamala Harris, which gave the rest of the party the ability to support her. Um, which we should be excited that she's the nominee.
Mhm.
And what do you guys think about that? Like her being the nominee and her chances.
Well, I'm
Well,
here
AJ,
to talk
we know
about that.
AJ, you're a little biased,
Uh,
but
I, I, I am a little biased, but like, here's the thing.
Mm.
Here's the thing. It is very difficult for me to be this biased about a Democratic presidential candidate. As I mentioned before, like in my intro, for anyone that doesn't know me, like I was in like the minor party scene for like the longest time. People don't really know me as someone who's like really easily able to fall in line with like establishment Democrats. I can be a little bit ornery. I'm one to kind of reserve my vote if I don't really like what's going on. So like I think the fact that I'm like biased towards Harris is a good sign. Like I'm if they've got me, like something's going right. They do genuinely have like the energy that the Harris Walls ticket brings to the table is insane, and I'm just like so happy. And like, yes, a lot of people are nitpicking the fact that there's not a policy page on the website. It's just kind of been like
Yeah,
vibes so far, but like presidential races are usually about vibes, especially past the primary. No one's really. I don't think anyone's really voting for the presidency for policy, which sounds really weird to say, but like think about it. And a lot
Yeah.
of people rather just voting against the other guy, or you're wanting to kind of build a broader coalition and using your vote for president as like a signal and in that direction. Uh, you know, I don't know. I think it's important for people to keep in mind that the presidential election is not where people get really, really hard on policy. A lot of the time, what
Yeah.
happens is, your presidential candidate gets in, and then, all the lobbyists and think tankers and wonks in DC start, to meet with them and start to talk with them. They're not, and this is something Biden actually got wrong when he was talking about like expanding NATO on the campaign trail.
yeah,
The average median voter, they don't care about that at all. Like genuinely, like that's a DC
Yeah.
issue. I think what a good presidential candidate really does need to do on the campaign trail in the general really is vibes. And if that's kind of a sad state of affairs, so
Yeah.
be it. That's what Democrats have been missing for like decades now.
I think all you can do when it's a binary choice is posture. That's the
Mhm.
thing. You can, if we had six different choices, we would have to distinguish between policies and all this sort of stuff. But all you have to do is be just left wing enough or just right wing enough of your oppositional candidate to pull away every single person that's potentially disillusioned by them. So it's pretty smart to not get too in the weeds, because that's when even left-wing people, we're all in line on this stuff, and probably because there has not been a policy page. Let's be completely honest. The second
Yeah,
that there's a policy page is, wait, there's no Medicare for all? What? There is Medicare for all? What's there's this? No, where's the UBI? Huh?
exactly.
And everybody then
Exactly, because like I said before, um, it's about coalition building. Voting for president, I think when you have this binary choice with two big parties, it's a ticket to a specific kind of coalition that you want to see, in the House and the Senate among, like wonks in DC, sometimes, like at the state level. And I think that the Harris Walls duo is a very promising one. I think they're uniting moderates, progressives, and more like neoliberal types, and that is hard to do. And we all
yeah,
know that's hard to do, and that's why the Dems can be so disappointing sometimes. But I think they're actually doing it, and that's what gives me a lot of faith in
yeah.
the ticket going forward.
yeah. But what do you think is the delay in bringing out the policy page?
Oh no, she just announced when she was going to get it now. So it is in the works. I think within the next week it'll be out. But it's it takes a lot of time to develop comprehensive policy that will please the right amount of people and just sway the least amount of people. I imagine you take a lot of they got a lot of different people to ask and test and see how they feel about it before they actually make it public. So because it's kind of a big deal.
But that kind of scares me a little bit because that's kind of the MO on her, that she doesn't have a fixed stance on anything.
But I think that's because she's such a strategic political figure. And I think that could work for her better, especially in this situation, because I do think that she is more left-wing than we're used to. And the fact that she's not going to campaign on that stuff could actually be the reason why we get those policies. So I don't know. I've always hated neoliberal posturing, conservative posturing a lot of times, but at this point, I don't care. I'm not like, the means above the the ends or whatever like that. But whatever gets the job done at this point, Trump is kind of an existential threat to humanity at this point. I'm not gonna lie. And honestly, the fact that they didn't even just pick a good candidate, they picked like the absolute pinnacle possible best vice presidential candidate is as good of a posturing towards my political aspirations or desires and goals than anything. So we'll see what happens.
Honestly, if it were up to me, no policy page. Because like to your point, like we're talking about someone with a progressive record that is trying to just trying to be the successor to Biden, which is very much not that, trying to build a coalition broad enough to beat Trump, who is unpopular but has a very energized base, and among people who are going to turn out and vote for him.
Yeah,
I think like you mentioned, like Medicare for all, like some of these like really, really progressive things that Kamala Harris has historically supported. That you have two options that either will be or will not be on the policy page, and either one is going to drive a split between those three main pillars of like the Democratic Party that I mentioned that she needs, and the more infighting that happens among them as a result to whether or not that's on the policy page is weakens the chances that she will get in office and do and be able to do any kind of healthcare reform.
Yeah, I don't think Obama's problem was necessarily his lack of ambition. I think they just didn't get the job done at the end of the day. I think if he had a bigger majority and more a left-wing or a farther left Democratic Party, they could have gotten a lot more done. So I feel like that's why I feel like he had very similar strategies in 2008. Universal, just universal healthcare was his coverage. He didn't say how or what mechanisms for that, and it was just like reform and stimulus, and he didn't talk about. You didn't get too specific. It was just about vibes, like you said, hope. You know what I mean? Yeah. Just the bare minimum of what people need to buy in, and it's not like he needed the bare minimum because he had all the charisma, but like it's playing a conservative campaign sometimes is not a bad move, especially when you have a more progressive agenda. It kind of works both ways. When you have a more conservative agenda, you have to play a more progressive campaign, or more liberal, you have to be more outspoken about this and posture yourself to a certain base. You just have to play to your weaknesses essentially, because you already have your strengths.
Yeah. And look, when Harris is pushed to give answers, and when she has been the past few weeks, she's still delivered good answers that I think anyone, decidedly left of center would like. There have been protesters for a ceasefire in Gaza at a couple different Harris rallies lately. And the first few times, she didn't quite know how to answer, but I think it was just the other day. She stopped the rally and she addressed them, and she was like, look, I understand that you have grievances and I'm going to address them. I've always been committed to a ceasefire. We need that. We need to bring the hostages home as well. And the crowd cheered. Everybody was happy. Like when when she feels like it is appropriate to talk about certain issues that might still be a little bit taboo for people who are super, super moderate, and she's trying to figure out how to actually talk about them to get everyone on the same page and get people united, she does really well. So I'm not concerned about her losing, any of that more progressive bent. I think she's just trying to be careful. Like you have to,
Yeah.
like, if you're running for president, you have to be careful about how you're going to handle conflicts in the Middle East of all things. Yeah, that's a very dry issue that the only people that care about it are people that really, really care about it. You have to really, really thread the needle there and give calm, diplomatic answers. So I don't blame her for taking a little bit and it taking, a few different protests at her rallies for her to really come up with the right thing to say. Because I have absolute faith in her that she has a good, answer for that. I think she's going to be significantly better on, bringing peace between Israelis and Palestinians than Biden is, for example. But you can't just run your mouth about that topic. It's a really sensitive topic.
Yeah, and people are very, very emotional about it on both sides.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, she
what
has
do we think? Oh, sorry. So go ahead. What were you saying?
No, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, well, we hadn't really talked too much on walls. I feel like we should finish on the
Well, that's what I was going there.
We're all excited about.
I was going there. I was gonna say that, I was gonna put a bow on the Madam President Harris conversation and say that she has a lot of work to do. She has to establish policies, stand for something, even if it's popular or not popular, because people like that generally. But she needs to make it. She has the advantage now because the polling and everything shows that she has the momentum. So now she just needs to double down on whatever policy positions she has and take it into the general election.
Yeah.
And for me, one of the things that I was very disappointed in initially, but that she already did as her first, act as the nominee, which I didn't think was popular, right? She picked Vice President Tim Walz.
Yeah.
That's presumptive because he's not
presumptive vice president.
Yeah. I didn't like that choice. I thought that Pennsylvania Governor Shapiro, I think his name is
Shapiro.
Yeah, I thought he was better. I thought he had more charisma. I thought he had more swag. I thought he had more je ne sais quoi about him. And so I thought that was pretty cool. And then I thought that she didn't make a popular choice. She picked some guy that no one knew. And I was like, oh, no, this is going to be the end of her campaign. That's how big I thought this mistake was. Until I heard Mr. Walz speak. And then I started to be like, oh, wait, he's actually pretty charismatic.
Yeah.
Oh, wait, he's actually pretty catchy. Oh, wait. So that's what I mean by her making a decision that maybe not be popular, but it's the right choice. Gives people confidence in her ability to lead. And so I want you guys, you guys know more about Walz than I do. So I'll let you guys chime in on him and what you guys think about him.
Well, also, I'm most of all glad she didn't pick Shapiro.
Yeah.
Almost as much as I'm glad she picked Walz, because I actually vehemently despised Shapiro. I'm not gonna lie. I think that he is
good.
No, he's not. I don't think he'd be a good choice. You know that he helped cover up a murder? Did you hear about this, AJ?
I heard about it. I haven't looked into it.
Yeah, there's no, he one of his friends was involved in this, something that they ruled a suicide, which had 25 knife stabs in the back or something like that. This is a definitive fact that he helped cover up as a governor of Pennsylvania. Stuff that would have come out very easily. This is stuff my grandma and I talked about on the phone. She knew about this. It would have come out. There's what he said about, Palestinian protesters. He fought in the IDF. Did you know that, Jesse?
I did not know that.
He fought for the IDF. So that would be very polarizing against the left-wing base that did just jump on Kamala's vote. So that would have just killed all the momentum. So I think
Was it the IDF or was it like a Israeli youth program thing? I've got multiple different answers on it, and I haven't looked it up myself, which I probably should have before the show.
I'm looking it up right now. But, despite me hating him, she picked not only a better choice, she picked the absolute best choice I think you possibly could have picked. Like I said, I honest to God had barely even heard him speak before I knew how good of a pick he was, just based on his accomplishments. I didn't even know his background. I just knew his accomplishments and how accomplished he was with a 1-seat majority. Then you add all the different details you find out about him. It's like fact after fact of crazy indication that he's a perfect vice presidential candidate. So I'm sure AJ has a lot to say about that. I'm looking at the Shapiro facts real quick.
Oh yeah, I mean, Walz is like just the most normal guy that has been on a presidential ticket probably in my lifetime as someone who can actually pay attention to politics. 2016 primary and onward, I guess. He's just a regular guy. He's just a regular Midwestern white dude. Vaguely upper middle class family. You see a bunch of every time I post a picture, you'll see a picture of him with his family. You're like, oh, that's really sweet. He's just and especially as a random Midwestern white dude. I feel like this guy. A line I used when I was talking about this with some people who I work with at Progressive Victory. I was like, look, this guy could have been my high school social studies teacher. And my high school social studies teachers absolutely changed my life for the better. Walz is where I'm just biased. Harris, I have an argument with Walz, I like the guy just because, he reminds me of he could be my uncle. Basically, that's as big brained of an argument as I have for Walz.
Well, I feel like Harris and Walz is such they feel like a aunt and uncle, to everybody. We're a mom and dad. We've never had a male-female ticket like this. I mean, I guess Hillary and Tim Kaine, but nobody on the planet felt like that. That was their parents, unless I don't know what kind of demographic that is. Real quick on Shapiro. So I don't think he didn't fight, but he volunteered at a military base, whatever, when he was a teenager or something. And when he was 20, he wrote, let's see. Oh, I just have this quote pulled up real quick. Oh, I've said for years. Oh, wait, not that one. I'm so embarrassed. Oh, they do not have the capabilities to establish their own homeland and make it successful, even with the aid of Israel and the United States. They are too battle-minded to be able to establish a peaceful homeland of their own. He's just Palestinians will not coexist peacefully. He's just very he's an opinion of the entire demographic of the Palestinian people as a whole. And I don't think that people are talking about that enough, about how dehumanizing most of the world is towards this incident, at least the ones that are peace or friends with Israel. So
and I've heard interesting, compelling arguments that maybe it is a little anti-Semitic to not expect a random Jewish guy to not have made any missteps regarding the Israel-Palestine issue in the past, or to not get defensive or have any emotions wrapped up in that at all. And I think there's maybe an argument to be made there and a discussion to be had, but that's not a discussion that you have during a vice presidential pick. If people don't like Shapiro and that's the reason, and you think they're wrong and you think they're making a misstep and you think they're being unfair towards him, that doesn't change the fact that there are a bunch of people that don't like Shapiro. You have to make a tactical choice when you're picking a VP. That's I think it's an interesting point. I think a lot of the people that were more pro Shapiro made interesting arguments related to those sorts of things. This is a vice presidential pick. You're not going to be changing everyone's minds by posting on Twitter within a week to get Kamala to pick Shapiro. That was never it. It was not the time or place to have that discussion. I don't think Shapiro would have ever been the nominee.
Well, at the end of the day, she talked about how she made the decision. It wasn't based on their, their reputation or their credibility. It was based on the interviews. And she talked with Ben, or I keep wanting to say Ben Shapiro, Josh Shapiro, and he came in like almost demanding asking super demanding questions and stuff like that of her, like, oh, what kind of role would you have me as vice president? Like, what kind of tasks, what committees would you put, what things would I lead, blah 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 blah. And when Walz and she just felt like he was too career focused, like he's thinking about, oh, how am I going to be president in 8 years? Well, Walz came in, he's like, oh, what do you have planned? Like, what do you want from me? I'm your guy. Just give me whatever you want to do. And he was just a better person to back her up. Like, even John Fetterman had warned her not to pick Shapiro because he was too like narrowly focused on his own personal ambitions. Well, that's not what we need as this ticket. And I think it really comes across when he talks too. People talk about his charisma, and I just see like, how much he likes his own voice. When I can hear him talking, it just gives me the ick. I don't know. And that's just my own intuition, because I spent a lot of time with political people and figures that want, attention and stuff like that. But Walz is not that man. Walz is a veteran. He's just a community service, football coach. He's a teacher. He just cares about people and like America. Like at the end of the day, he's the exact like genuine person in politics for good reasons that we have had such a problem finding. That's why people like Bernie. It's not because he's like a socialist. That's not what makes him popular, with Trump supporters and stuff. It's because he's not a politician that's there for personal ambition. He's just, you can tell he cares about and has the values that he espouses. So that's the most important thing.
Yep.
Yeah, if Bernie wasn't just like a nice guy, a nice charismatic guy, there's no way he'd be able to get away with being like one of the like furthest left people in federal Congress. Like the Dems would not allow him to caucus with them if he wasn't genuinely like actually a great guy. I completely believe that. And I mean, to your point, I think Shapiro and Walz both have a lot of charisma, but they have two very different kinds of charisma. And I think kind of like what you're saying. I mean, what I've seemed to read from like, it leaks and like things that, major news outlets have said that people have told them, all hearsay basically. What I've heard is that it was kind of like Shapiro's ambition that doomed him, because it felt like he was, pretty much everything you said. It seems like they didn't like him because he was too focused on his career, and they felt like he was, coming across as, kind of like the, center left, technocrat. How am I going to,
kind of
enrich myself? And Walz is just not that in any way. It's funny. I saw someone kind of like genuinely asking on Twitter the other day, being like genuinely asking, why is calling? I don't remember. I wish I could remember who said this or what was going on. But they asked like just openly, why is Walz calling Republicans weird a running strategy, and Hillary calling Republicans like a basket of deplorables was a losing strategy.
Yeah.
And what it really came down to, and again, it was the thread or the stream or wherever this was, what people kind of agreed on was the fact that Republicans are weird is a very, for one, it's just true.
Yeah.
But also, it's something that people actually say. Basket of deplorables is like condescending coastal elite language, and it sounds like you're looking down upon middle America for being like dumb Republicans, and you're so much better than them. Just calling them weird doesn't have that connotation at all. It's something that a high school football coach would say about Republicans, because it is. Because
and to your point is your family member who's a Trump supporter. You don't think of them as like a just deplorable human being for their views, because you have some sort of context of how they got to that point, and you just sort of see them as like, why did he get down this rabbit hole? It's kind of weird. Like, he was such a normal guy. Like, that's how most people feel about their family members. So I think it just plays better to the people who have those, who are more on the border and just have to pick between their liberal family members and their conservative family members to side with. It's just like, if you just call one like a Nazi, you know that they're not when you talk to them. Like, it's like, well, it just has to sit, or to set, to what's the word? It just has to hit when the attacks. I don't know.
Yeah. The Clinton messaging was demonizing and out of touch, and where Harris and Walls are going with this is just being honest about how you just kind of look at, your super conservative family members and you're like, come on, man, like, how did we get here? Like it's a completely different feeling. It's a more honest one, and it comes from someone who actually, sits down and, presumably has, Thanksgiving dinners with his weird Republican relatives.
And
I
it
just
sounds
can't.
more patriotic.
That's not a situation the Clintons have ever been in. I genuinely don't think they live like that. They probably have feeding pods that they go to. Who knows what they get up to? But that's just it's a sign that this guy is genuinely down to earth and actually knows what he's talking about.
Yeah. It also puts them in a box, or it doesn't put them in a box where we can see a reformation process where it's like, yeah, well, they just went down a weird path. They're just being weird. They're not they're not permanently deplorable human beings. Like, one is more, accepting of the other side, even if it's still an attack on them. Like, it's still, doesn't go too extreme. And that's the way to not go extreme,
Yeah, exactly.
All right, we got to cut this episode a little short. This is our more, catching you up on what we missed. I think we're going to talk about the election, our next part 2 of this episode. We got some important things in the morning to get. Jesse's got to go do his job doing the Lord's work out here. So
yeah, I have a hearing first thing in the morning, guys. So that's why we have to cut it short. But what I look forward to, we're gonna elaborate more on this this week. Sometime this week, we're gonna figure out time where we can go a little bit more deeper into like the numbers and the swing states, how Camilla changes the map a little bit. So that's kind of I love that stuff. That's the data analysis stuff. So we're definitely going to touch more on that. But I'll let you guys say a final word before we cut off.
Vote. Like, I know everyone says that. I know everyone says that every year. But actually, seriously,
vote,
please. It could people actually not feeling disenfranchised and their vote doesn't matter could be the difference between and people actually going out and voting and being like, no, I'm gonna go vote no matter where I am, no matter what state I live in. I feel like this election, it's becoming increasingly more and more the case that voter hope could be the difference between a narrow victory for Trump and Harris having an Obama 08 moment where she wins a state like Indiana, which as much as I would love to be able to report that my great state of Indiana is going blue, I don't think that's going to happen. But there are other states where it might actually happen. So please vote no matter where you are. Hell, if you don't like Harris, go out and I don't know, vote for RFK or something. Just
vote for Dems down ballot.
I wouldn't advise that you do that, but go vote.
But still vote for Dems down the ballot because,
Yeah, it's important. Local elections matter. So it's very important that you guys vote, especially in your local elections, because they have the most impact on your life.
And research your local elections. Actually get to know the candidates. There are a lot of situations in local elections where, you might not want to vote straight ticket. The Republican, or there might be an independent, someone might just be a genuinely nice guy. Research your local elections. I think that's something that we get wrong. We just tell people to vote in the local elections.
Yeah.
Get to know the people that are running for a local office. I mean, for some offices, you can go out and meet the person like in a week if you want to. Actually get engaged with local politics. I'm a big advocate for that because so many of your problems could be solved if more people did that. Believe me.
Yeah. Exactly. All right, guys. Well, we'll look forward to part 2. We'll see you. Thank you for imagining more. We'll see you next time.
Right.
Yeah.